The strange house on Oak Street. Jake Carter had always wanted his own place. When he found an old house for sale at a price too good to be true, he didn't ask too many questions. The house sat at the end of Oak Street, surrounded by tall trees that whispered in the wind. It was big, quiet, and just a little eerie. But Jake didn't care. It was his new home now. The real estate agent had been in a hurry to leave when handing over the keys. "Are you sure you're okay with this house?" she had asked, her smile forced. Jake had laughed. "Why? Is it haunted?" The agent had hesitated for a second too long. Then she shook her head. No, nothing like that. Just, some people don't stay long." Jake had shrugged. He wasn't afraid of creaky floors or old houses. That night, he unpacked a few boxes, set up his bed, and made himself a simple dinner. Everything was fine. Until midnight. A voice in the dark. The house had been silent, except for the occasional creak. Jake had just started drifting into sleep when a noise woke him up. It wasn't the wind or the house settling. It was a voice. Deep, calm, unfamiliar. "I come with the house." Jake's eyes snapped open. His heart pounded. Had he imagined it? He sat up, listening. Silence. Maybe it was just a dream. Or maybe it was the old pipes making weird sounds. Yeah, that had to be it. He lay back down. Then he heard it again. Closer. "I come with the house." Jake jumped out of bed. He grabbed the baseball bat he had brought for safety. His eyes scanned the room. Shadows danced on the walls, but nothing moved. He forced a breath. Okay. Think. If someone was inside, they had picked the wrong house to mess with. He wasn't about to be scared off by some weirdo hiding in a corner, searching for the intruder. Slowly, he stepped out of his bedroom. The hallway was dark, but the moonlight streamed through the windows, giving everything a ghostly glow. The floorboards creaked under his feet as he moved, gripping the bat tightly. "Who's there?" Jake called. No answer. He checked the living room. Empty. The kitchen. Nothing. The doors were locked. The windows were shut. He even checked the closets. No one was there. But then, right as he turned to go back to his room, something moved in the corner of his vision. His breath caught. He spun around, raising the bat. The basement door was slightly open. Jake's stomach twisted. He hadn't opened that door. He was sure of it. He stepped closer. The air felt colder here. He could hear something faint, a soft humming sound coming from below. "Do not go down there." His instincts screamed, but his feet moved anyway. With slow, careful steps, he descended the wooden staircase. The humming grew louder. The basement was dark, except for a faint blue glow coming from the far corner. And then he saw it. The unexpected resident. A figure sat in the shadows, just beyond the glow. Not a person. Not human. Jake froze. His grip on the bat tightened. The figure had glowing blue eyes that stared at him without blinking. Its skin shimmered like liquid metal. It was humanoid but not quite right. Its limbs slightly longer, its fingers too sharp. The thing tilted its head, studying him. Then it spoke. "You are the new owner." Jake's mouth went dry. Do what?" "I come with the house." It said it so casually, as if it were normal. As if it were just another piece of furniture that came with the sale. Jake took a shaky step back. His mind raced. Was this real? He wanted to believe it was some kind of elaborate prank. But no, the creature in front of him was real. "Who? What are you?" Jake managed to say. The figure didn't move, but the blue glow in its eyes seemed to pulse, as if considering how to answer. "I am Zyron, and I have been waiting for you." Jake's blood turned cold. Waiting? For him? Before he could ask another question, Zyron lifted a long metallic finger and pointed toward the ceiling. "They know you are here now." A deep rumble shook the house. Jake's heart nearly stopped. What did he mean? Who knew he was here? Outside, A strange light flashed through the trees. Something was coming, and it wasn't human. Meeting the unexpected resident. Jake stood frozen at the bottom of the basement stairs, gripping the wooden railing so tightly his knuckles turned white. His breath came in short, uneven gasps. The figure before him, Xiron, sat motionless, its glowing blue eyes locked onto him. The humming sound that had drawn him down here had stopped. Now, there was only silence. A deep, suffocating silence. Then Xiron moved. Not in the way a human would, no shifting weight, no stretching limbs. It was as if its body simply adjusted positions without effort. One moment, it was seated. The next, it was standing. Jake took a step back. "Stay right there." He lifted the baseball bat like a shield. Xiron tilted its head. "That weapon will not help you." Jake's heart hammered against his ribs. "Oh yeah? You want to find out." Xiron blinked, slow and deliberate, as if trying to understand. "I do not wish to harm you." That should have been comforting, but it wasn't. Jake swallowed hard. "What are you? What do you mean, you come with the house?" Xiron's metallic fingers twitched. "I have been here for many years. Hiding. This place is my refuge." Jake stared at him. Hiding? From what? Before he could ask, Xiron took a step closer. His movement was smooth, unnatural, almost liquid-like. Jake tensed, gripping the bat tighter. "I mean you no harm, Jake Carter," Xiron said. "But they will come for you now, because you have seen me." Jake's stomach twisted. "Who's they?" Before Xiron could answer, the house trembled. A deep vibrating sound came from outside, like a low, pulsing hum that crawled through the walls. Jake spun toward the basement door. The lights flickered. His instincts screamed at him. Something was outside. Something was looking for Xiron. Jake turned back to the alien. "What the hell is happening?" Xiron's glowing eyes narrowed. "You must decide now." Jake's pulse pounded in his ears. "Decide what?" Xiron stepped even closer, lowering its voice. "To trust me, or to run." Outside, something knocked against the front door. 3 slow, heavy knocks. Jake's breath hitched. He had no idea who, or what, was on the other side. And for the first time, he wasn't sure if staying inside was safer than going out. The alien's secret mission. The knocks on the door had stopped, but the silence that followed was even worse. Jake could still feel the vibrations in the floorboards beneath his feet, like the house itself was holding its breath. Xiron stood beside him now, unnervingly calm. The alien's glowing blue eyes didn't blink, didn't flinch. It was as if this was all part of a plan Jake couldn't see. But Jake had questions, and he wasn't going to let some strange, glowing alien decide how this night ended. "What are they?" Jake whispered, his voice low but sharp. Xiron didn't turn his head. "Hunters." Jake felt his stomach drop. "Hunters. Hunting you." Xiron finally met his gaze. "Now, they are hunting us." Jake cursed under his breath. This wasn't just about some weird alien squatter anymore. Whatever Xiron had brought with him was dangerous, and Jake was now right in the middle of it. But then Xiron did something unexpected. He reached into the shadows of the basement and pulled out a small metallic device, shaped like a sphere, with faint symbols glowing along its surface. It hovered in his palm, humming with an energy Jake could feel in the air. "This is why they are here," Xiron said quietly, "and why I need your help." Jake stared at the object, confused and angry. "You need my help. I don't even know what that thing is." Xiron's voice softened, but there was an urgency beneath his words. "It's a beacon, a message to my people, but only a human can activate it." Jake's head spun. None of this made sense. Why me? Why a human? Xiron paused, as if weighing how much truth Jake could handle. "Because humans are more important than you realize," Xiron finally said. "And you, Jake Carter, you are not just any human." Jake felt the room tilt beneath him. This had to be some kind of joke. But Xiron wasn't laughing. Before Jake could respond, the walls of the house shook violently. A bright red light cut through the cracks in the windows, and an inhuman screech echoed from outside. Xiron stepped closer, pressing the beacon into Jake's hand. The device felt warm, almost alive. "You must choose, Jake," Xiron whispered. "Help me save your world, or watch it fall." And with that, the front door exploded inward. The first attack. The front door didn't creak or crack, it exploded. Splinters of wood shot across the room like shrapnel, and Jake barely had time to dive behind the couch. The force of the blast rattled the windows, sending shards of glass raining down like deadly snowflakes. But Jake wasn't thinking about the door anymore. He was thinking about what just stepped through it. They weren't human. Tall, thin creatures with elongated limbs and jagged, bony armor. Their skin shimmered in shades of gray and green like oil on water. Their eyes glowed a sickly yellow, and their mouths stretched wider than any mouth should, revealing rows of needle-like teeth. Jake's heart pounded in his chest. These were the hunters Xiron had warned him about. But seeing them in front of him, so real, so close, was something no warning could prepare him for. Xiron stood in the middle of the living room, calm as ever. His glowing blue eyes narrowed as he faced the intruders. "Leave," Xiron commanded, his voice low and steady. The hunters hissed in unison, a sound that felt like it was burrowing into Jake's skull. But they didn't back down. Instead, they charged. Xiron reacted fast, faster than Jake could even process. With a flick of his wrist, a blinding blue shield burst from his body, throwing the first hunter against the wall with a sickening crunch. But there were more. Jake scrambled to his feet, gripping the baseball bat like it was his last lifeline. He knew it was useless against these things, but he wasn't going down without a fight. A hunter lunged at him, claws outstretched. Jake swung the bat with everything he had, connecting with the creature's side. The impact sent a shockwave up his arms, but the creature barely flinched. Jake's eyes widened. This was bad. Just as the hunter raised its claws to strike, Xiron appeared beside Jake in a flash of light. With a swift, fluid motion, Xiron extended his arm, and a pulse of energy blasted the creature back through the broken doorway. Jake staggered back, breathing hard. What the hell are these things? Xiron didn't take his eyes off the remaining hunters. They are scouts. The first wave. If they succeed, more will come. Jake's stomach twisted. More. This was just the beginning. Suddenly, the beacon in Jake's pocket began to hum. It grew warmer, vibrating against his leg like it was alive. Xiron's gaze snapped to Jake. "The beacon. It's responding to you." Jake fumbled to pull it out, his hands shaking. The glowing symbols on its surface pulsed faster, brighter. The hunters hissed louder, their attention now locked on the beacon. They didn't just want Xiron anymore. They wanted Jake. Xiron grabbed Jake by the arm. "We need to leave. Now." Jake didn't argue. Together, they sprinted toward the back of the house, the hunters hot on their heels. The walls trembled with every step, and Jake could feel the weight of the beacon growing heavier in his hand. As they burst through the back door into the dark woods, Jake realized something terrifying. This wasn't just Xiron's fight anymore. It was his, humanity's hidden power. The cold night air bit at Jake's skin as he and Xiron tore through the dense woods behind the house. Branches whipped at Jake's face, the beacon pulsing like a heartbeat in his hand. Every breath felt heavier, like the weight of the whole universe was pressing down on him. But it wasn't the running that scared him. It was the change. Jake could feel it, deep in his bones, under his skin. Something was waking up inside him, something he couldn't explain. His senses felt sharper. The darkness wasn't as dark. The sounds of the forest, crickets, rustling leaves, distant water, were suddenly crystal clear, like his mind had been tuned to a new frequency. And the beacon in his hand, it wasn't just an object anymore. It felt like an extension of him. Zyron finally skidded to a stop near a clearing. He turned to Jake, his glowing blue eyes wide, not with fear, but something else. Recognition. You feel it, don't you? Zyron's voice was low, almost reverent. Jake doubled over, panting. Feel what? That I'm about to pass out. Yeah, I feel it. Zyron stepped closer. No. The connection. The energy inside you. It's awakening. Jake shook his head, trying to dismiss it. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just. He stopped mid-sentence. His fingers tightened around the beacon as a sudden surge of warmth shot through his arm, racing up to his chest. Jake's breath caught. His heart wasn't just beating. It was glowing. What's happening to me? Jake whispered, his voice trembling. Zyron placed a hand on Jake's shoulder, his metallic fingers surprisingly gentle. You are more than human, Jake. Your kind has always been special. But you are something rare. Jake's mind raced. This couldn't be true. He was just a regular guy. A guy who fixed machines, not some chosen hero in an alien war. But the heat spreading through his chest said otherwise. What do you mean rare? Jake asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Zyron's eyes glowed brighter. Your DNA carries a trait my people have only seen once before. It makes you a conduit, a bridge between human potential and universal energy. Jake blinked, trying to process. I'm sorry, what? What now? Before Zyron could answer, the ground beneath them shook. A deafening roar echoed through the forest, followed by the sound of trees snapping like twigs. The hunters were close, and they weren't alone anymore. Zyron's face darkened. They've brought a seeker. Jake didn't need to ask what that was. Whatever it wasn't friendly. But then something strange happened. The beacon in Jake's hand flared, and a wave of energy burst from his chest, spreading through the clearing like ripples on water. The trees around them shimmered, their leaves glowing faintly in response. The very air seemed to pulse with life. Zyron stepped back, eyes wide with awe. You did that. Jake stared at his hands, stunned. I didn't do anything. But deep down, he knew that wasn't true. The power had come from him. And for the first time, Jake realized something terrifying and exhilarating all at once. He wasn't just part of this fight. He might be the one who could end it. Betrayal and revelation. The glow from Jake's chest slowly faded, but the energy still thrummed beneath his skin like a living current. His heart raced, not from fear, but from the strange power that had awakened inside him. Zyron watched him closely, those glowing blue eyes unreadable. For the first time since they met, Jake saw something behind that calm alien face. Hesitation. Why didn't you tell me about this sooner? Jake asked, his voice low and tense. You knew there was something different about me. Zyron didn't answer right away. He looked away, as if the trees held the explanation Jake was demanding. I needed you to trust me, Zyron finally said. If I told you everything from the start, you might have run. Jake's jaw tightened. Run? From what? You? The hunters? Or the fact that I'm some kind of alien battery? Zyron's eyes snapped back to him, a flicker of something dangerous passing over his face. You are more than a battery, Jake. You are a key. Jake took a step back, the weight of those words sinking in. A key. To what? The forest trembled again, but this time, it wasn't from the hunters. It was from the realization settling in Jake's chest. Zyron wasn't telling him everything. What aren't you saying, Zyron? Jake demanded. What's really going on here? Zyron hesitated, then sighed, a sound that felt too human for someone so alien. My people sent me here to find you, Zyron admitted. Not to protect you, to use you. Jake's stomach dropped. Use me? For what? Zyron's eyes dimmed slightly. The beacon isn't just a message, it's a weapon. And your power is the only thing that can activate it. Jake's breath caught in his throat. A weapon. "You lied to me," Jake whispered, his voice shaking. "You said this was about saving Earth." Zyron stepped closer, his voice urgent. "It is, but saving Earth means destroying the Hunter's world. If we don't strike first, they will wipe out your planet." Jake felt the ground tilt beneath him. This wasn't a simple fight between good and evil. This was genocide. "I'm not a killer," Jake said, backing away. Zyron's expression hardened. "You don't have a choice." Jake's heart pounded. He realized now that Zyron wasn't the hero he had fought. Maybe he wasn't even the enemy. But he was willing to sacrifice millions for his mission. And Jake wasn't sure he could be part of that. Suddenly, the Seeker burst into the clearing. A towering creature of shadows and steel, its eyes glowing like molten lava. The ground shook with each of its steps, and the air grew thick with the scent of burning metal. Jake had no time to think, no time to decide who to trust. The battle had found him. And now he had to choose: fight alongside Zyron and risk becoming the weapon, or stand alone and find a way to protect Earth without destroying another world. The final stand. The Seeker loomed in the clearing, a monstrous fusion of shadow and metal, its molten eyes locked onto Jake. The ground vibrated beneath its massive feet, and the air grew thick with a strange electric charge. But Jake wasn't afraid anymore. The beacon pulsed in his hand, sensing with the rhythm of his heart. He could feel the energy humming beneath his skin, a power he hadn't asked for, but one he was ready to use. Across from him, Zyron stood still, his glowing blue eyes reflecting a strange mix of regret and resolve. "Jake," he called out, his voice steady but softer than before. "This is our only chance. Activate the beacon. We end this now." Jake's fingers tightened around the beacon. He could feel its pull, urging him to release its power. But Zyron's words echoed in his mind. "It's a weapon." The Hunters began to close in from all sides, their hiss-like growls vibrating in Jake's chest. But he didn't move. His focus was on the decision that would define not just his life, but the fate of two worlds. "I'm not your weapon, Zyron," Jake said quietly, his voice firm. Zyron's expression darkened. "If you don't act, Earth will fall. Your people will die." Jake shook his head. "No, there's another way." And then something shifted inside him. Instead of channeling the beacon's power outward as Zyron had intended, Jake turned it inward. He focused not on destruction, but on connection. The beacon responded instantly, its glow intensifying as it sensed fully with his energy. A wave of light exploded from Jake, not the blinding, destructive force Zyron had wanted, but something different. The light was soft, pulsing like a heartbeat, spreading through the clearing and washing over the Hunters, the Seeker, and even Zyron. The Hunters froze mid-attack. Their molten eyes dimmed, and the aggressive hiss in their throats softened to a low, confused murmur. The Seeker let out a deep, rumbling growl, but it wasn't anger. It was recognition. Zyron stared in shock. "What are you doing?" Jake felt the truth settling in his chest, heavier than the power itself. "I'm not here to destroy anyone. I'm here to show them we don't have to fight." The beacon's light continued to pulse, and for the first time, Jake saw the Hunters not as monsters, but as beings trying to survive, just like him. The Seeker's towering form began to shrink, its molten glow cooling until it resembled more of a creature than a weapon of war. Zyron's face twisted with disbelief. "You're making a mistake." Jake met his gaze, steady and sure. "No, you did. You thought power only meant destruction. But it doesn't." The clearing grew silent as the light faded, leaving behind a stillness that felt peaceful. The Hunters slowly backed away, their eyes never leaving Jake. The Seeker gave a final, low rumble before disappearing into the shadows. They were retreating, not because they were defeated, but because they understood. Zyron looked at Jake, the weight of failure heavy in his eyes. "You could have ended them." Jake sighed, his body finally relaxing. "And become just like them. No, I'd rather give them a chance to choose peace. Zyron didn't respond. He just turned and walked into the forest, his glowing eyes dimming until he vanished among the trees. Jake stood alone in the clearing, the beacon now quiet in his hand. He didn't know what would come next, whether the hunters would return, or if Zyron's people would send someone else. But for now, Earth was safe. And Jake Carter, the man who thought he was just an ordinary guy, had become something more. Not a weapon, not a soldier, a bridge between worlds. And that was a power no one could take from him.